Hey gang, welcome back to Inverted Pursuits Laboratory. This week we are going to be taking a look at how to build the Little Nick 2 as well as the Macey 2. So these two rockets have been upgraded to now have a very similar ecosystem. Rather than being two very dissimilar types of rockets, they're almost identical in body diameter and function. Only difference is how the fins look and some of the aesthetics, and a little bit on flight characteristics due to weight. So when you buy a Little Nick kit, this is where we're going to start, you will receive a threaded motor retainer, which is one of the new features of this rocket, a cardboard tube shorter than the previous version, the fin can body, and your nose cone. And that's it. Also a shock cord. But that's it. And that's how we've actually got to see a price reduction in the cost of the Little Nick 2 in comparison to the original Little Nick. So when you're looking to start building these, the first place you want to start is attaching your shock cord inside your rocket. Something I will mention is that these rockets are now a completely no glue solution. Previously, both the Macey and the Little Nick required glue to hold parts in, and that's just no longer needed. So I'm taking a number 6 nut that I've got handily lying around and tying it onto my shock cord. I find this very helpful for the purposes of threading my shock cord into the body tube. If you've met me out at a launch event, I always recommend you do this. So take a nut. Now if you actually look down the body tube, you can see there is a bar in there. That bar is what we're trying to tie around. It's a pretty standard feature on almost all of my rockets. So we loop it down one side and then we're going to lace it around the bar so that when I pull it back through, we're completely attached. So now I'm going to untie the nut from there, and then I'm going to tie a slip knot into my rope so that I can tug tight and call it good. Slip knot also gives me the chance, doesn't mean I'll use it, but it gives me the chance to undo it. Got the ends of this starting to fray a little bit. Sometimes wants to happen. Let's see if I can fight this through. There we go. So I added a little extra loop in there. It still slides, as you can see. I can slide along the line here. And now all you have to do is hold your body tube and pull on the string, and it will now cinch it around the inside of the rocket. So now we've got that attached. The next thing we want to do is attach our nose cone. I don't think this is going to be as easy because I forgot to bring a pair of pliers over before we started. We're going to use a pair of scissors because these will work for getting a hold of it. Pair of scissors will cut Kevlar, but if you're very gentle, you can actually get around you can tie or grab a hold of Kevlar with a pair of scissors down inside the nose cone without cutting it, which is what I just did. And so now we'll tie that on there. So I just tied a quick square knot on there. Actually, it looks like I failed on a square knot. Okay, doesn't really matter in the end. It's a knot that holds it on there. So I've got a knot holding that on the end. Now there is no streamer or parachute that goes on this rocket naturally. If you want to add a streamer, you're more than welcome to, but I use this one as a tumble recover. From there, we have our motor liner, which is a cardboard tube, which is about 2.7 inches long. And so if you're ever needing to make a replacement, it's literally if you push it in there and then cut it flush with the back edge of the body. That's how I make this part anyway. And then your motor retention threads on. So then your motor will go in the back here. So you unthread it, you put your motor in. A little bit of the motor will stick past the bottom of the rocket. That's normal. That's actually what you want to be able to get it out easily. Otherwise it's not very easy to get out. Then you thread this back on there. The motor is completely retained inside the rocket. And then you can just wrap up your shock cord real quick, which I just usually wrap it around 2 fingers to gently get it coiled. Slide it inside the rocket body. And the little Nick 2 is ready to go to the pad. Now, the Macey works almost completely identically. So in the Macey, you will get a nose cone, a motor retention identical to the little Nick, and the fin can body of the Macey. You also get 36 inches of Kevlar and a streamer, which I'm realizing I forgot to bring the piece of streamer over with me, so let me go get that. And the piece of streamer, which it will come taped up like this. Grabbed one out of the current Macey supplies. So the Macey 2, just like the little Nick, you start with a nut. I like a number 6 nut. Number 8 will also work. And we're gonna kind of speed run through this since I laid it out in the little Nick, but I will talk about some of the quirks between the two. So the Macey having a longer body makes it a little bit harder to get this nut through. That's one of the major differences between the two designs, is that the length of the body adds some extra trickiness, we'll just say, with putting it together. So you gotta sit here and finagle a lot longer. You know what? You can also do it without the nut, and it's looking like today Macey doesn't want a nut. So I just lick the end to help keep all the threads together. It is not helping me get it down there though. There we go. Now we're out the bottom. So I've threaded on one side. Now doing this without the nut makes it a lot harder to get it back through, especially. You're trying to hit the opposing side of the bar hole, which it looks like I managed to do. I have put a couple dozen of these together, so I'm getting kind of used to it. So that goes on there. If you do look down the Macey, I'm really hoping you can see it. There's the bar way down in there that you've got to hit, which is where the Macey is a little more tricky of a build than the Little Nick. Even though they are the same ecosystem, they're just not, each is not as easy to build as you would like to believe. It's almost like this is almost a ready to fly solution, but it's not quite a ready to fly solution. Like, there's still some assembly required. So if we're talking in aircraft terms, I would call this a bind and fly, which means you still got a little bit of work to do, but you're not building the whole thing ground up or having to like stock all the electronics or any of the hardware for it. So all right, so now we've got our slip knot good to go, and again we're just gonna pull. The knot disappears way down in there and it's tight. And then again we will do our nose cone, and once again I'm going to just use a pair of scissors because while I got up I did not go after the pliers. Would have been kind of smart of me. If you've never done a square knot, which is what I like to tie here on the nose, it's right side over the left side loop and then take the left side short tang and go over the right side and tuck it under. It's basically 2 opposing knots. It doesn't seem like it, but it is. From there, we'll tie a spot. I usually choose, I guess, about 2.5 inches down from the nose cone. And I can tie a little loop in here if you want to add a parachute. But I don't tend to add parachutes to these. I have added really, really long streamers before because it was a lot of fun. But then I take the streamer, choose a random spot, and tie the streamer onto the rocket body, onto the shock cord. So now we've got all of that. I am going to steal parts because I didn't make a lot of parts right now. On my prototypes and anything I'm doing, I tend to just trade parts between rockets. So if you see me stealing stuff, that's what's going on. So then again, you get a 2.7 inch BT20 tube. It's a standard tube you could buy from Estes. Again, if you just put a BT20 tube in here because you lost this or got it wet or something, an Estes BT20 tube and then just cut it flush with the back will make your replacement. And just like the little nick, the motor retention threads in the back and you will retain your motor. To take your motor out, you'll just undo it, and occasionally your motor tube and everything is going to want to come out with the motor retention. It's not a big deal. Sometimes it'll stay in there, and then you just grab your motor and slide it out. Sometimes this again will attach to the motor and you just pull them apart. They usually don't hold on to each other very tight unless they get wet. Then they hold on very tight. But for packing the rocket, it's a pretty straightforward process. I always just take and roll. Oh, I got a rolling nose cone. Could you stay still and not move? I tend to just take the shock cord. All right, fine. You're gonna play nasty on me. And I just kind of quickly roll the shock or the streamer up. My goal is just to make it a little roll that you toss in the top of the nose cone. This is not going to be very pretty because it's just fighting me today. It may fight you some days, it may not. Really can't tell you how it's going to choose to behave. After you get a little distance, it does tend to roll easier, but we'll just kind of get it loosely rolled. Alrighty. So now that's rolled up. You'll definitely want to toss a little bit of dog barf down in here. Same thing on the little nick, just to ensure that you don't burn anything. Kevlar shock cord will not melt, but you just always want to protect your shock cord, or your shock cord, your parachute, your streamer, whatever you got on there, you want to protect it. So do that on the little nick as well. I forgot to mention that previously. And you just kind of slide everything gently in there. The nose cone slides on top, and you're ready to hit the pad. So that is the Macey 2.0 and the Little Nick 2.0. I'm calling this one also the LN2, kind of looks like liquid nitrogen. So a little bit of fun there. So if you're interested in picking up one of these kits, or you've already got one for yourself, congrats. You've got a very fun kit and a very reliable rocket that will fly time and time again. If you're looking to buy one of these, there's a link in the description down below where you can go to my store and find both of these rockets as well as many others, and some very unique rockets that are up and coming. All right, gang, we're gonna do a quick test of the Macey 2.0. I forgot, an A83 is not a lot of power on a Macey. That was technically stable flight, so glad to see that that worked so well. So streamer came out, as you can see, even on a low flight like that with an A83. The entire rocket's completely intact. Everything's still attached. It looks like my knot came undone though. Yeah, I did a poor job tying a knot on the nose cone. And that's an assembly issue. Dab a super glue on there. We'll fix that, no problem. Better tie a better knot than I did. We've got the Lil Nick 2 out here. Really does not look that different from the Lil Nick 1 for those of you that are familiar with it. Biggest thing is we're flying these on A83s. I always do tests low and slow on first flights of a new vehicle. So we'll get back up here to our launch control box and get her ready to go. So this is Little Nick 2 in 3, 2, 1. And that was perfect. So Little Nick 2 is a tumble recover. You can add streamers, or there's really not much room for a parachute. Just short streamer is about the best thing you can add into this thing. But I've tumble recovered this from almost 1,000 feet, and it comes back just fine. So when we come up on it, you can see we've got nose cone intact, body is completely intact. The shock cord is thoroughly still attached. I tied a much better knot on this nose cone than I did on the Macey. So we can see, those fly great. Hey gang, thanks for watching. If you'd like to help support the channel, please consider liking and subscribing. That really helps the channel out a ton, and I'll see you all in the next video.